Good morning. Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Free Press Media Press Inc., an alternative parties books publisher, sponsors this podcast. I'm Andrew Bouchard.
Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Alternative Parties friends, we have another exciting guest on this podcast like we always do. This time we're having someone from a party we haven't yet spoke with, so that's going to be exciting. Her name is Donice Smith. Welcome to the podcast, Donice.
Hi, thank you so much, Andrew. I really appreciate you reaching out to me. And so you're reaching out to me from Texas, aren't you?
You got it.
Wow. Well, that is really wonderful. I really am grateful that you're bringing me on, and I hope I can answer some of your questions today.
Excellent. So let's get started by you kindly giving us an introduction to yourself and kindly tell us what party you represent.
My name is Donice, D-O-N-I-C-E, like Donice. Middle name is Noel with two L's. It's French, N-O-E-L-L-E. And the last name is Smith. That is my married name. I was born in California, in Berkeley. I like to call it Berkeley. And I was raised in Pleasant Hill, California, where I entered the military in 1974. I volunteered to go to Vietnam to be part of the Amerasian baby lift operation, bringing home our Amerasian children and orphans and our soldiers. And while I was on my way to Southeast Asia, I actually got rerouted to Korea. So I landed in Korea December of 1974, and I was there in April 75 when Vietnam fell, and I was there for 13 months. Many of our soldiers coming back from the jungle, some of those that were injured, some that had emotional mental issues, came through the 121 evacuation hospital in Seoul, Korea. And at age 19, I was dealing with working on a ward that was psychiatric, open and closed, and also those that had drug and alcohol addictions. Years later, I found myself at Fort Ord in Monterey, California. I ended up over a period of time having my older son and my daughter. He now teaches middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade in a public school, and my daughter. And then many years later, I had 3 more sons. I was going to college full-time and part-time while I was raising my kids. And I dropped down to part-time military while I was raising my 5 kids. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom and go to college during the day when they were in school, and then I'd be home at night when they got home. And so I ended up doing that. I received my first AA degree through Hawaii, and then later on I went to nursing school for a year and a half and got my nursing diploma certification and later my license. And then after that, I ended up years later going back to school as a non-traditional student. I received a more updated associate's, but it was an AAOT, Associates of Arts, Organ Transfer, and Associate of Science, an AS degree from Umpqua Community College in Oregon. Then I went back to school in my 50s, and just a few years ago, as a non-traditional student, I majored in history and the Constitution, and I minored in English and creative writing, and I got my bachelor's degree through Eastern Oregon University in La Grande. I have been an elected officer in numerous veterans organizations. I'm a life member of a couple of those, and I'm also a lifelong member of the International Society for Professional Women, and I'm being considered right now to be printed in the 2023 book called The Marquee Who's Who in America. And so hopefully when that all come about, so I was nominated for that, and then it looks like they're going to be possibly printing me into that book. And that organization and that book has been getting published for over 100 years. And again, it's called The Marquee Who's Who in America. So I try to do a lot of activism, volunteerism. I've worked with Boy Scouts of America, Girl Scouts of America, and with the Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership Foundation called HOBie for sophomores who are being groomed for leadership. My uncle and my bio father are the ones that founded the Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership Foundation. So I really believe in volunteerism and people rolling up their sleeves and working together.
All right. Kindly tell our audience what party you represent.
Well, for the last 47 years, I've been a member of the Republican Party. 8 of those years, I was a PCP. I got my husband and one of my close friends and one of my youngest boys to all join as PCPs. They got themselves elected as precinct committee chair people. We've been very active in the Republican Party, but over time we found out that the Republican Party, like the Democrat Party, have become captured operations throughout the United States. The Democrat parties are no longer like the John F. Kennedy Democrats. They're becoming more the Marxist progressive, and the Republican Party is becoming more like the Democrat Party. They're more into fundraising and the wealthy establishment of the Democrat Party and the wealthy establishment of the Republicans, mostly very well-to-do businessmen. And they have pretty much forgotten the people, in many cases have abandoned us. And so I have not left the Republican Party. They abandoned me, and I decided since they and the Constitution Party of Oregon have the same values and principles, or we're all supposed to anyway. We're all supposed to not just be talking the talk but walking the walk.
Sure.
I left the Republican Party with the same values and principles I've always had. Nothing's changed. In many ways, I still support the Republican Party. I help them out with certain activities, and sometimes I'll donate some money here and there to a fundraiser. But I went over to the Constitution Party of Oregon. And the Constitution Party of Oregon has a few issues with the National Constitution Party of Oregon, so they sort of split the sheets in a way, and I think that issue was over regarding abortion. But for the most part, the Constitution Party of Oregon is very much like the National Constitution Party of the U.S., and we want to get back to the basics of life, liberty, and limited government. I want to repeat that again, Andrew. It's life, liberty, and limited government. We believe in God, family, and country. And I'm just sick and tired of seeing that the two-party system, the Republicans and Democrats, keep on playing tit-for-tat and mudslinging, and they're not really even trying to work together. But I wanted to let you know, I just found out the other day that a Democrat, I think he's a lawyer, decided he was tired of the two-party system of them not getting along, and he founded something called Braver Angels, and it's where on a regular basis Democrats and Republicans sit down, they break bread together, they have coffee, they have get-togethers where they try to discuss the common thread that unites them.
Interesting. I don't think I've heard of that organization.
It's fairly new.
Okay. So kindly tell our audience what office you're running for.
Yes. I actually, when I joined the Constitution Party on May 27th of this year, 2022, I was looking at possibly trying to be a county chair. I'm in Douglas County, Oregon, and the county chair here wasn't doing anything to grow the party. And so there was quite a few concerns. There's 36 counties in Oregon, and only about 14 or 15 counties were representative. But a couple of the counties were not being grown by their county chairs. So I joined the party and said, look, I'm willing to either, be a county chair if you appoint me or elect me in this county or the adjoining county. Because if you live in a county where they already have a working, active, helpful county chair, you can be a county chair in the adjoining county as long as you share a border. Well, they said, we actually have some other plans for you. We're vetting 5, 6, 7 people to be nominated by our party to run for governor, and we would like you to consider that. Now, let me explain something to you about that, Andrew. When you have the primary in your state of Texas or in California or Washington State, Idaho, or Oregon, usually those primaries are held in May of that year. And the primary only consists of the Republican and Democrat candidates who are all vying to be considered. Eventually, at the end of that primary, you narrow it down to one Republican and one Democrat. Because the Constitution Party is considered an alternative party, and it, people use the word minor party, but, we don't like using that word. We hope to be one of the 3 major parties one day. But I like the term saying that the Constitution Party is an alternative party. We have to wait until after the primary, which in this case was May 17th, 2022, and then within 4 to 5 days we can have our own primary. And because we're not as big as we would like to be, we don't have all of our counties organized the way we'd like for precinct committee chair people. So therefore, only the county chairs get a vote. So that means 15 people get a vote, and they get to choose who they want to have as their nominee for governor. Now, because of our bylaws here in Oregon, the Oregon Constitution Party is only 22 years old. Because of our bylaws, we are allowed to, if we don't find anybody in our own party that wants to run for U.S. Senate or U.S. Congress, we are allowed to nominate and say we will back the Republican who's running for U.S. Congress, or we will back the Republican from the Republican Party who's running for U.S. Senate. In this case, we are backing Alex Skarlatos, who's running for U.S. Congress. He's running against another Democrat, and that is because the seat that has been for over 35 years, held by Peter DeFazio, Democrat, has been vacated because he's retired. So we are backing Alex Skarlatos, and you probably heard of him. He was one of the National Guard soldiers that was on a trip in Paris, France, with two other friends of his, and there was a train that had a terrorist on it, and they made a movie, Clint Eastwood did, and in this movie, the three men got to play themselves and how they managed to take down the terrorist before he shot up the entire train coming out of Paris, or on the way to Paris. So we have actually endorsed Alex Skarlatos, and then there's Jo Ray Perkins. She's been running for years as a Republican. She first ran against Democrat Jeff Merkley, and because of their money and the corruption, she wasn't able to win. We believe that, the Dominion machines and others have been causing many of these elections to be selected rather than elected. And now she's running against Democrat Senator Wyden. And our party, the Constitution Party of Oregon, and many other Republicans were all getting behind Jo Ray Perkins, hoping that she would be able to unseat Senator Wyden finally, because Senator Wyden and Senator Merkley had been harming not only Oregonians, but other things they've decided in Washington, D.C. against the rest of America. So I am what I call a constitutional Republican running for Oregon governor as a gubernatorial candidate, and I'm running under the flag of the Constitution Party of Oregon.
Sounds good. So kindly tell our audience what are some of the main platform issues you have for this governor race.
Well, I have some of the same issues that now the other three women who are running against me have been stating. Let me kind of give you a little bit of background so you can understand where I'm coming from.
All right.
One of the ladies who's running has been a Democrat. She was raised by both Republican parents and then Democrat family members, and she has been a Democrat in the legislature in Salem, Oregon for over 20 years. Somebody told me 27 years. I was kind of looking it up, but I know it's been somewhere between 20 and 27 years. Now, she did not get the nomination in May 2022 in the primary on the 17th of May to secure the Democrat nomination for gubernatorial candidate. So she decided to run as non-affiliated, or she calls it as an independent. She's anything but independent. She is an heiress. She has amassed a lot of money. She has a lot of pull and connections with big corporations, many of them out of the state of Oregon. So this is very concerning. And so she is running as an unaffiliated. And because she has millions of dollars in her PAC, that's PAC, or what you call your candidacy checking savings account, she is allowed to debate, even by the liberals, because they know she's really a Democrat. The second person that is running actually secured the nomination for the Democrat ticket to run as a gubernatorial candidate. And I have a lot of family members, people that I know, friends of mine, people that because of their gender, their lifestyle, whether they're gay or homosexual, lesbian or whatever, many of them are very conservative. And you'd be surprised how many people in the homosexual community are very conservative and are Christian. I know some people who are Christians would find exception with that. But these people don't just talk the talk, they walk the walk. And what goes on in their bedroom they believe is private. So we have some very conservative people in that community. But this governor is very liberal. This governor candidate, this gubernatorial candidate, is very liberal. She's best friends with the current governor we have. And she's even stated in her platform, I want to be the first lesbian governor in the Salem governor's office. That's not a very good criteria to go on. She has been talking a lot about homelessness and crime all of a sudden, as has the first woman who's running unaffiliated. Now, the third woman, I don't know where she really came from. We heard of her the first time in 2018, 2019. She says she's a Republican and a Christian, but she supports abortion. She said as long as Oregon has it a law, then she will support abortion, and she doesn't differentiate between abortion in the first 6 weeks of pregnancy or the last 6, 7, 8, or 9 months of the pregnancy, which to me is murder. It's infanticide, okay? So all three of these women have been in the legislature. The third woman, who says she's a Republican, has been voting almost everything the Democrats wanted, and her attitude was, well, you got to play along to get along. So she's not looking at Oregonians and their best interest in mind. She's looking at, as my friend said, she hasn't got a backbone. She has a wishbone where her backbone should be. And so all three of these women, because they've been bringing in millions of dollars from Phil Knight, who owns Nike, he's out of state, he's a liberal. They've been taking money from Pfizer, the same Pfizer big pharmaceutical that killed 3 of my cousins and has killed 2 of my friends, including a friend's 16-year-old son out of Texas, whose name is Ernesto Ramirez Jr. Young Jr. was in perfect health. His dad took the Moderna. He's having health problems now, and he's an Army veteran like myself. His son said, well, if you go in the hospital, I can't see you if I haven't taken the shot. So Ernesto Ramirez Jr. of Texas took the Pfizer. And 5 days later, he dropped dead with a heart that was enlarged twice the size of a 16-year-old's heart. So to me, if these 3 women are each taking $45,000 apiece from Pfizer, then whoever gets into the governor's office, what favors are they going to owe to these big pharmaceuticals or these big corporations? And I told everybody, if Phil Knight offered me $3 million like he did to Tina or to Betsy, I would turn it down. If he offered me $45,000, to all 3 women have received $45,000 from Pfizer, I would turn it down. I'm not a Judas. I'm truly a Christian woman that believes that even if you're going to lose the race, you do it holding your head up high, you take the high ground, you do not compromise, and you do not allow them to buy you or buy the votes of Oregonians.
Sounds good. So what is your strategy to reach the voters in Oregon?
Well, these women, like I said, have been talking about homelessness and how if they are chosen as the governor, they will deal with homelessness and they will deal with mental illness and crime in the streets like Portland and Salem. And as you know, in the legislature, all 3 of these women voted for defunding the police. And Portland police were told to stand down and allow Antifa and Black Lives Matter that were shipped in, bussed in, flown in. We found out later they were being paid by organizations that are shell organizations for George Soros. So George Soros has all these shell organizations. He's pretty much bought and paid for all the district attorneys that are liberal in the big blue Democrat cities. So they were brought in and they destroyed Portland. And the police were told to stand down. And Ted Wheeler is the mayor there. He just had another race. He was running against Natalia, who is a Marxist progressive. And the people in Portland go, oh, my gosh, you know, our city's destroyed. We need to choose the lesser of 2 evils. And so they chose to bring Ted Wheeler back again, and he's also the head of the police department. So I'm telling these 3 women, you voted for defunding the police. You've had years and years, in one case, one of them over 20 years, to deal with the homeless issue. Where is the money going that's supposed to help these issues? Where's the money going that's supposed to be for mental illness? Is it going in someone's pocket? Is it going into a general fund to be spent somewhere else? They are not addressing the homelessness. And as a psychiatric nurse, I will tell you, I've worked with homeless people, both veterans and non-veterans. With the homelessness, the longer you're in the streets, the more mental illness. The increased mental illness, the more dangerous you become to yourself or to others. While you're in the streets homeless and your mental illness is increasing, you may turn to drugs or alcohol as a way of numbing those feelings. And Oregonians are very upset because the legislature and others passed Measure 110, and that measure is to make all drugs, whether cocaine or heroin, legal to have, to own, to sell, to process. That was one of the biggest mistakes that happened here in Oregon recently was Measure 110. And so these women who had been in the legislature had influence to keep this from happening. They chose to let this happen. And so with our homelessness, our mental illness increasing, our drug and alcohol addictions, then you have crime increasing, and it becomes a vicious cycle. So now these women are saying, if you vote for me, I will put a stop to this. Well, I'm afraid they're just saying that to get the votes. Because once they get in there, we've seen time and again, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And I do not believe these women. But I, as a former psychiatric nurse, dealing with homelessness, child trafficking, drug and alcohol addictions, I will make sure that I bring Oregon back from the brink of where we are right now.
That sounds good. So how are you planning to, what activities are you doing in the campaign to get the word out on these issues?
Well, because all these three women are refusing to debate me. Their campaign managers don't want me to be debated. The Oregonian newspaper and the Willamette Weekly are both very liberal newspapers up in the Salem, Portland area. They have gathered together their association of newspapers to keep me off the debate stage. Their excuse is, if you don't bring in a lot of money for your party and you don't have a lot of money in your PAC, in this case $7 to $19 million, which these three women, one has $19 million, one has over $10 million. If you're not bringing in the big money being donated to you and you're not being bought and paid for by the big corporations and pharmaceuticals, then you don't have a right to sit at the table and debate with the other three women. So basically I feel like I'm being censored and I'm being suppressed, and everywhere I go around the state, I am traveling to cities and towns in eastern Oregon and southern Oregon these three women won't go to because they believe their entire voting base to get them over the top is only coming out of Salem, Eugene, Portland, and maybe Medford, which is up and down the I-5 corridor. So they're not going to eastern Oregon. They're not going to southern Oregon. And many of the people there are saying, look, we didn't even know you existed. The only time these people found out about me was when I was on the campaign trail passing out my flyers, my business cards, and my signs. And then 2 weeks ago, I came out in the voter's guide. And the voter's guide, if you don't get enough signatures, and I was only given 2 months to run my campaign because of what happened. We had some situations come up during the summer where the Secretary of State had to straighten it up. So therefore, I've only had 2 months to campaign. That's all. The whole month of September and the whole month of October. So because of that, I didn't get the signatures I needed. I would have if I'd had more time, and I'd been authorized. Because of that, we had to pay $3,000 for me to go in the voter's guide. So the people here in Oregon who have heard about me for the first time open up their voter's guide to find out, oh, there's a fourth woman running for governor. And then they're seeing that I'm on their ballot. So I'm number 2 in the voter's guide. I'm between the two Democrats, and I'm number 2 below the Democrat. I'm the second one below the first Democrat on the voters ballot. So people are very happy, but they're angry because they feel that they should have known there was a fourth woman running. In fact, Fox News in New York City and their affiliates around the country of the USA have been saying Oregon is making history by having 3 women run for governor, no men. There was one man, his name was Leon, and he dropped out. He was a libertarian. He dropped out of the race early on, but not in enough time to have his name removed from the ballot. He just didn't go in the voter's pamphlet. And then, of course, we had Natalia, who is with the Peace, Green, Progressive parties, all 3 of them, which is basically Socialist, Marxist, Communist Party. She did drop out in time to not be in the voter's guide or to be on the ballot, but Leon wasn't able to do it soon enough. So then we have a guy who's a write-in, and none of the parties wanted to nominate him as their candidate. He's run for U.S. Senate in the past, Congress in the past, at least 4 other races, and he's lost every one of them. So now he's trying to run as a write-in for governor, and it's been very concerning things that have been happening around that. But for myself, I'm letting people know, yes, I am the 4th woman running for governor. You have a 4th choice now. You don't have to choose the lesser of 3 evils. And I hate using the word, Andrew, evil, because all 3 of these women are not evil per se as people, but they're evil in their actions and what they've done to Oregonians over the last 7 to 27 years. Our party, the Republican Party, has been a captured operation for 30 years, ever since Solomon Ewe, came from communist China, mentored by a man who's the head of the World Economic Forum, and they're the ones that now are telling you and I that someday, by 2030, we will own nothing, have nothing, and be happy. So the man who is mentoring Solomon Yu brought him here to keep Oregon turning to a blue state and never let it become red again. And the Republican Party here has been allowing this for 25 years under Solomon Yu. They drank his Kool-Aid. They shrugged their shoulders when they realized who he really was. And our state has gone down by 20% Republicans and up by 30% both Democrats, and I'm not talking about the good Democrats. There's some good ones out there. But the Democrats that are more like the Marxists that you and I do not want to see our country become. So I'm fighting very hard to get my message out. I know this election's probably going to be selected, not elected, but I'm not going to go anywhere. So you're going to see me around for a long, long time.
All right. So you said you got on the ballot, right? You paid the money to get on the ballot. Was that how it worked? Did I hear right? You paid
Yes.
the $3,000.
$3,000. What happens is you have so many months to get signatures, and usually a lot of people are able to get their signatures in the 6 months before the election. But actually, 2 months before the election, you have to have the signatures turned in. So in this case, in Oregon, by the 30th of August. I was not allowed to start running for office until about the 30th of August because of some things that had to be straightened out with the Secretary of State to make sure that the Constitution Party of Oregon was considered a viable party. So because I wasn't able to get as many signatures as we needed, in my case I had to have 500 signatures, we fell short by about 150 just before the 30th of August. So if you still want to go on the ballot, you have to have your picture submitted to the Secretary of State, who's the Secretary of State of Oregon, the state office, and then you also have to pay $3,000 up front. And so either you would get the signatures or you pay the $3,000 for governor. Now, we have one gentleman here in the Constitution Party. His name is Ed Renfro, and he's running for House District, I think it's House District 2. And he's running in the Constitution Party. And then we have Virgil Osborne in Douglas County, Roseburg, Oregon. He is also running for House District 2, but as a Republican. And then there's a 24-year-old man running for House District 2 as a Democrat. I know that Virgil Osborne got a number of signatures he needed. I don't know what happened with the other two. I haven't been able to really follow through with that yet to find out what's going on.
Sure. So as of this podcast, we're doing this interview right before the election, and God willing, it'll be posted very shortly after the interview. So it's approaching the deadline for the voting in November. So kindly tell our audience how they can support you in these final days before the election.
Well, first of all, I do want to state that, yes, I served in the military for 35 years. I've had both officer, commission officer training. As a non-commissioned officer, I've actually had commission officer training. I have been both medical and finance specialist. I've been a teacher, an instructor, as well as a nurse. And I took an oath to defend the U.S. Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And that oath never expired, even though I retired in 2015 with 35 years actually in boots. I continue to want to serve my country, and I want to serve the state of Oregon that is also the place of some of my ancestors. And so
Sure.
I'm asking people, please, to either support me by contacting me through my website, which is Donice, D-O-N-I-C-E, Smith, and then the number 4, the word proton, so it's Donice Smith, D-O-N-I-C-E, Smith, S-M-I-T-H, the number 4, Oregon, O-R-E-G-O-N, at Proton, P-R-O-T-O-N.me, M-E. That's Donice Smith, 4, the number 4, Oregon, at Proton.me. They can send me an email there. They can also look at my website. In fact, anybody who votes for me, I don't want them voting for me if they haven't looked at my website and really gotten to know who I am and what I'm about. unlike the others, I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk. They can write to me at this address, which is 4601, that's 4601, Carnes, C-A-R-N-E-S, that's Carnes, like in cat, C-A-R-N-E-S, Road, Suite number 8, box number 112. So that's 4601, Carnes, C-A-R-N-E-S, Road, R-O-A-D, or just R-D, Suite, S-T-E, number 8, box number 112, Roseburg, R-O-S-E, like the flower, Berg, B-U-R-G, Oregon, 97471. They can also reach out and call me, and I will answer the phone or call them right back if they have any questions or concerns. I love taking Q&As over the phone. That number is 541-530-4718. Again, 541-530-4718. I want to continue to serve Oregon, and I want to continue to serve our country. And I believe as governor, I could really stop what I call the arterial bleeding going on here in Oregon. We can't do the Band-Aid approach anymore. We can't allow people to keep drinking the Kool-Aid, not aware of the fact that they are being buffaloed by the establishment, the old Republican Party, and the establishment of the old Democrat Party. We need to roll up our sleeves. We need to stop being keyboard warriors. We need to get out behind our phones and our computers and put the foot to the metal. Right now, our back is to the wall. We are losing our country. We are losing our states. And our election integrity has been compromised for many, many years. And we need to do something about getting back to one person with ID, one ballot, one vote, and voting in person and voting on Election Day. As governor, I would make Election Day preferably a paid holiday. No more excuses why you can't get off your butt and get down to the church or school or your elections clerk and vote in person. It takes less than 10 minutes to fill out that ballot and turn it in person. This way we could start to slow down and stem the tide towards election fraud. You need to see the movie 2,000 Mules. That explains everything.
All right. Denise, thank you kindly for coming on the podcast today. We appreciate hearing your views, and we wish you all the best in your campaign and your other personal and professional endeavors.
Thank you so much, and I really appreciate you taking the time to reach out to me, Andrew. I wish you all the best and your podcast, and I'm very proud of you. As you know, I did international talk radio as a volunteer for 27 years across the nation and internationally as Maggie Rose. That was my AKA, Maggie Rose or Maggie Rose McGrath, with the Concord Hour and the Concord Show. And I am very proud of young people like yourself that are actually reaching out and trying to do fair, unbiased reporting, and I do appreciate your journalistic background in that way.
Thank you very much. All the best, and take care.
Thank you, Andrew. You too.
Bye now.